Right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Women's Maximum Fitness Podcast. My guest today is Chanel Colette. And if you follow her on social media, you know her as the coach and athlete of Audacious Athletes. And we are going to talk about bodybuilding and transitioning out of bodybuilding and making it a lifestyle and running a business and all that great stuff. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's been a kind of a crazy week, but obviously when you own your own business, there's not a week that's not crazy. But aside from business things, social things and life has been throwing some curveballs my way. So I'm just glad to be here today and able to put a smile on my face.
I think with everything going on in the world, everything going on in the world and then home as well. And like you said, running your own business, there's just never a dull moment, you know?
No, not at all.
Well, part of the reason that I wanted to have you on the podcast is I love, I've been following you for a long time, and I know that you competed in a couple of different categories. I don't know even if you're officially retired or, how much people, I would say I'm retired, but I always am like, we still hold on to.
Yeah, I get that. Officially, I am no longer a fitness bikini pro with Muscle Mania and Fitness Universe. So that was back in 2014. I had finally got my pro card with them in that federation, but my choice to switch over to the NPC in 2016 did forfeit that title. So I can no longer use that title. That, it's part of my past. So that is officially part of my past. And then of course I went on to compete in the bikini division in the NPC again. So I came back full circle back to kind of where bikini, was really, I guess it was always in Fitness Universe, Fitness Muscle Mania, but they really capitalized on more of that pageantry. Yes. And when the NPC was really starting to kind of make division criteria more of a thing, and it was being more consistent, around 2016, 2017, they just had really solid judging qualifications for each division. And they were just starting to really refine their craft as a physique federation. So I switched back over, and I really didn't look back. Honestly, I had no regrets for switching over. I loved the criteria for bikini and where it had come to. And then I took a year off for my health and my own wellness, and had every intention of coming back. Obviously that I took time so I could come back, in fact. And during that time, I just added more muscle tissue to my upper body that would not be sufficient for the bikini criteria any longer. So I probably added a little bit more tissue in the front of my legs as well. That's why I was able to transition over into wellness when I did come back in 2020. So 2020 was my last season. I don't foresee me stepping on stage anytime in the near future. There's always those goals. I had just crossed masters, so I did compete at the masters level at 35. There's always masters 45 and older. There's always masters 50 and older. So I'm not saying that I won't, but it's just not going to be on my radar for a very, very long time, I would assume. It's just after doing it since 2012. And what that impact it had on my business growth, which is great. But what it had an impact on in my business, in my, social calendar, my married life. There was just a lot that I wasn't able to do as a competitor. And there, it's not saying that sacrifices are a bad thing, but you absolutely, at the caliber that I wanted to compete at all those years, there were sacrifices, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what it was. So I'm definitely happy to be free from a lot of that sacrifice that would need to be had in order for me to make it to that caliber that I wanted to be at.
Well, I think it's really important for people to understand the level of commitment, time, and dedication that it takes when you are competing, and the impact that it has on other avenues of your life. And I sometimes wonder, I'm a single mom, and I think maybe it was just me, like I didn't have somebody else, it's like I know other people handle life better, or they can, maybe they manage things, I would say, in a more, I don't want to say balanced, but more harmonious way. And for me, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I just, yeah, so I understand that. And I just think it's really important for people to understand when, or to figure out their capacity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about your family circumstance too, because I think that there is a family situation or situations for individuals where competing is very conducive to their life. My husband had a very, very demanding career in the initial part of our marriage and the initial part of my competition career. So competing gave me an outlet to spend time in a structured environment because he wasn't around nearly as often. So it was very, very, like, I lived a very conducive life to being able to be in a very selfish environment for my body and for my goals. Then of course, times change, promotions happen, life changes. And, we now can have weekends together. We now can travel more frequently. And, when that started to become a part of the equation in our life, competing no longer seemed like it was as alluring as it had been. And when I competed in 2020, after trying to compete for a whole year, essentially because of COVID and stuff, like that just took a big, big toll on me and made me really realize, like, wow, this is taking a lot from our lives. Because at that point he worked from home now for the first time. The level of quality time that we could have exponentially increased, but I was unable to be present for that quality time as much. So it definitely was eye-opening. And so I think that if you choose to do the sport, I think you have to take into consideration all those facets. Because if you want to compete at the caliber, even nationally qualified, to get nationally qualified and to place in the top 5 at a nationally qualified show, it's a huge commitment and huge sacrifice. It's not dinking around. You're not just trying to get that, that plastic trophy at the regional level. You're really trying to make it to that second step. And it's tough. And resiliency and your lifestyle circumstances has a huge impact. And if people think that it doesn't, or they can, just skate around the fact that there are, other things around, like the whole, like on the grind mentality, like that can only go so far. And eventually it has to be like, you really want to be giving up some of these things in your life for a momentary point of time so you can accomplish these goals. And, I had just done that for a lot of years, 8 years in a row. And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. And I think it's smart. A lot of people continue to try to fight that battle. And it, your external environment is fighting you as well with those stressors. And it's making you inch along. Whereas if your environment was conducive, it'd be a lot easier for you to, progress.
And my body was no longer as resilient. Obviously, resiliency and that your quote dieting age of your body, the body that you're carrying, how many times has it dieted, how many times has it lost body fat and gained body fat back, that has its own age and it has its own timeline within your body. And it's like my history is very, very deeply rooted in dieting, and so my body knows that. And so I would like for my body, for the first time in a long time, to know what that history isn't like anymore. And I think that even if I was to compete in the future, I think I will be better off by taking a very long extended period of time off, more than just a year, because that's about all I ever took, was a year off here and there.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about your history. I usually start with, just because I like to know the epigenetics, what is your athletic background? Like, what were some sports that you played as a child? And then how did you transition into the weightlifting and eventually competitive bodybuilding?
So I like how you mentioned that epigenetic thing, because I do think that there, especially in some of the female divisions, there is a genetic, we can't ignore genetics. So genetically, I'm not advantageous to be a bodybuilder at all. I'm not meant to be lean. I'm a Canadian Indian, so my body wants to store body fat. I'm basically an Inuit Eskimo, and like, I'm not supposed to be that low in body fat. In fact, my body environment, it's worrisome. Like, the internal workings of my body are literally worried to be that lean. I can't hold on to that level of leanness very long. I do have to get to an extremely low level of body or of calories in order to be stage competitive. I've never been one to be able to quote reverse into a show. My body just once calories start coming again a part of the equation, I've never had this oh wow, this is great, I get to eat more kind of situation. So there's definitely a genetic component to this sport. And for me personally, I did not enjoy physical activity as a child. I enjoyed, playing with my toys in my room. I enjoyed playing school. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed playing flashcards. Like the kids playing, I was last to be picked for kickball. I tried to play basketball and it was not the greatest. I had glasses when I was little and I couldn't wear contacts. I couldn't figure out how to get them in my eyes, and my mom was frustrated. So she was like, well, I guess you're going to wear goggles if you're going to play basketball. And so then I gave up basketball because I didn't want to wear the goggles. And then of course I get to high school and they're like, well, your extracurriculars aren't very wide. Maybe to be more lucrative on a college application, you should play some sports. So I was like, okay, well, I need something solo. So it's like, okay, track and tennis. So I made a valiant attempt at track. I wouldn't call it a very good attempt, but tennis I actually did enjoy, but I wouldn't commit to it. I never gave it my all. If I had a test I had to study for AP or whatever crazy academic rigor I needed to do, I was going to prioritize that. So my priorities never really lied in physical activity at all. And in college, I found that I was at such a high level of stress my first semester of college. I wasn't really adequately prepared for a Division I academic rigor. Obviously, I didn't go there for athletics. I went there for academics. And I just wasn't prepared. My high school was in Georgia, and Georgia public schools are just, they're what they are. You can look up the statistics. It's not the best. But I was high in my class. And so I just assumed that college would be like high school for me. And I assumed very wrong. My stress levels were so high that I turned to running to relieve stress. And I had never run in my life, but all of a sudden I definitely knew what that runner's high was, because it took me out of my own head a little bit. And it got me able to refocus my academics later on in the day at some point, or whenever I needed that break. And then a good roommate down the hall in the dorm, she's like, you should probably lift too. Like you should do other things other than just run. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go train upper body on Tuesday and Thursday. I don't need to do legs because I'm a runner, right? I don't need to do legs. So I would go to the gym on Tuesday and Thursday, and I would do the little upper body machines, and then I would go about my business. And that was all I knew of weight training. And I was completely pretty much self-taught. I never took a class. I read Oxygen magazine. I read, Women's Health, and I would pull a routine out and I would do that for a couple weeks, and then I would grab another one. And so that's like, again, bodybuilding for me was an unusual path. But I think my rigor with academics and my commitment to work and accomplishing specific goals somehow led me into being, able to be successful in bodybuilding, even though my genetic makeup and my genetic background was not conducive to it. So my work ethic kind of trumped some of that, but the genetic aspects of it started to definitely show up when it came to my health, I think.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that is an important aspect to mention too, that I do think hard work can beat genetics, or at least beat your genetics. You know what I mean? People underestimate
Absolutely
just effort.
They do. And then there's the other half of the equation where people are like, oh, you have to be genetically advantageous to do this sport. And to a degree, probably a couple of, Olympians that we saw, like the people who are placing 5 years in a row at the very, very top, the 3-timers that's when the combination of work ethic and a little bit of probably genetic makeup actually ends up coming to this like beautiful picture of this incredible athlete that literally is like jaw dropping what they're able to accomplish. But their like work ethic is just such a big part of that equation. And I think people just don't necessarily get it, or they're in the school of thought of they just want to fall back on, oh, it's just their genetics. That's why they're able to do that. But no, I had nobody in my family really, like, I mean, I had like my grandfather maybe did a couple powerlifting things in the military training that he did, but like nobody in my family was super star athletes of any kind. Uh, so I was definitely not destined to do anything like that. So I was definitely very much so a shock to my family when I ended up doing what I did and doing everything I have done with it.
So I don't want to skip over your competition history, but do you look at your physique now? Because of walking around, I mean, you look awesome. Obviously, you're not shredded lean, but I mean, you're obviously working out regularly, I would assume. Yeah. And are you just kind of floored at what you have accomplished? Like, hey, I look freaking awesome walking around. You know what I mean? Like, I never would have imagined that you could create this.
Yeah, I guess I always like envisioned for myself, because I would get frustrated early on in my competition career. I would get frustrated because I would feel like in my quote off seasons or time off, I would slowly look like I didn't compete or I didn't train anymore. And I would slowly get away from the look because my body couldn't hold on to it. So as I started to learn a little bit more about progressive training and taking care of my body hormonally and stuff, then it was like, oh, now my off-season physique ended up looking so much better and so much more like I worked out. Like people can look at me and be like, oh yeah, she must work out. And I'm able to carry this body because of so many other years in my past. So many of those years built up to be able to do this. And so I a lot of people I think are coming into my Instagram account now and they're seeing this quote maintenance body, but I try to at least once a week bring to their attention, like, I got myself here after years and years of dieting and reverse dieting correctly and training progressively. It didn't happen after one diet. It didn't have to happen after one competition season. This was years of work to get me here. And I am very, very grateful for the body that I do get to walk around in now, because it is very, it is like you said, like I'm so floored that I did that. And that I do like relatively get to maintain this now. Now it's just a matter of like, you know, what does maintenance look like? Does it look like certain seasons where I am training a little harder? Does it look like vacations where I just take a week off? Because I do that now. And it's great. But like you said, I still train. I still train 4 days most of the time in the gym a week. I don't really skip a fourth day. I make it happen some way, shape, or form in my schedule. I still do cardio protocols that you know, my coach gives me. And I play tennis with my husband now. That's been like a new thing that we've picked up this year. So I went back to playing tennis from high school. I'm not as good as I was then. And I wasn't even that great then. So that's not saying much now. But I still take a couple cycle bar classes and yoga classes. Like I still lead a very, very, very active lifestyle, even though I'm sitting in this chair that you're seeing me in for about 14 hours a day. So even though I'm sitting quite a bit, I'm still very, very active. So I think I'm able to maintain, you know, some level of quote leanness and looking like I work out, because again, I am so active. Like even most days I have 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day on my watch. And like I said, I'm mainly sitting here.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that this is probably what they want, because the physique that they think they want takes a lot more work than this physique that you have really worked a long time for, but have been able to maintain with your lifestyle, and not having to compromise what you're passionate about.
And that's what I sometimes tell my clients is, you know, they'll show me their ideal physique. And I did it too. I mean, I remember my first coach, I sent over a picture and I said, hey, this is what I want to look like. And I remember him saying, well, we don't know if that's how you are going to look like, but you know, we know what you possibly can look like. And we're going to try our best to get you there and get you improved on that look too. And I just that always just really set with me. Like, you can't really put yourself and your body up to somebody else's standards. You have to kind of be very, very happy with how you look and what you look like and what your capabilities are within the scope of your lifestyle. Like, again, not every person's going to be able to train 5 days a week. Not every person's going to be able to even train 4. So you have to be realistic on what it is that you can give to the equation and what that outcome can potentially look like. And I think that kind of probably maybe trails into like maybe another question a lot of podcasts have asked me recently, why I chose wellness over bikini, or why I chose to do 1 season of wellness and then not stick with it.
Sure, absolutely. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I obviously I had outgrown bikini. And I think my bikini physique was so hard to maintain. That one was like, whew, man, it is so lean. That's so lean. That's so tiny. And the amount of muscle tissue that, you have to kind of streamline your body to contain as a female, especially with an older lifting age like myself and a very mature musculature and mature muscle bellies, like, I would have to streamline and tailor my physique. So I no longer fit that box. And so my next box that I had to try to kind of fit into was wellness. And had it not been the inaugural season of wellness, I mean, I wouldn't have placed. And I know that in the deepest parts of my soul. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, nationally qualified wellness competitor. I'm not going to just like throw that out there, because that standard only stood for the first year. Like, when people are like, you were such a great wellness competitor, I would love to look like you, and I really want to do wellness. And I'm like, hold on, let's break this down here. Like, first off, I am not a standard of wellness. There's definitely a larger standard that they are requiring in terms of what the lower body looks like than I'm ever going to remotely be able to obtain without multiple years off from training, but with the objective of getting back on the stage with training. And for me personally, and my love for things that I love outside of fitness, which are, fashion, I've always really been into apparel and clothing design and all that stuff. And, there came a point where it was like my legs were getting so much bigger than my waist and nothing was fitting. And I was very, very frustrated with that experience. So for me personally, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that physique and that standard, but I know personally the longevity of where I want my physique to be in for the rest of my life. And it doesn't fit that criteria. So I would be pushing for a standard that really isn't appealing to me long-term. So, and not a standard I think that I can keep long-term either. So yeah, that's why basically I was like, I feel like there's really not a category for me anymore. And the category for me is just, I want to look, like I work out without having to stress about working out all the time for the rest of my life anymore. So yeah, so I'm, that's where like, your standard, the standard of a physique competitor has to match those criteria, but you get to have your own standard for your own body. And I think you should honor that at some point in your life, whether you are a competitor or not, you should honor what you want your standard to look like.
And I think there are seasons of it, but what I think people can gather from your story is that you put in the time, you put in the work, all that time to get to where you are. So I think you need to be committed to that time and know that it's still, this isn't an overnight physique either, even if it isn't the one that you thought was the girl on Instagram that you wanted to look like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I love too, the fact that you just were like, I'm going to try this. And I think people need to understand that too, that might be like, whether you have a genetic background for building muscle or you have an athletic background or, whatever your family history is, to give it a shot, because now it sounds like the cornerstone of your fitness is still going to the gym and hitting those weights, 4 days a week or 3 days a week. And I think that's the base that is going to keep most people healthy and have a, a physique that they're going to be happy with for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And the girl that I sent to my very first coach that I wanted to quote look like, she doesn't look like that anymore. And I don't judge her for that, but she doesn't either. So again, that people have to understand that those physiques and those glamorized things that we see on social media or on show photos, that is such a fleeting body. Like, it is not sustainable. And as I've started to coach more and more clients, both from a competitor standpoint and from a lifestyle standpoint, there does have to be this merge where both types of clients need to understand this pathway of sustainability, and they need to be also aware that they need to shift out of sustainability to achieve certain goals. So but at the end of the goal, there should be somewhere where you converge to find that sustainability point. And I think that sometimes competitors get burned out because they never feel a sense of sustainability in their lives. They never take a break. They're fearful of taking a week off from training. They're fearful of not tracking everything that goes in their mouth. And, I think that those habits start to have a confounding effect over time.
Yeah. It's very important. And I think everyone who gets into competing initially thinks they're going to be the exception. They're going to be able to hold on to that stage lean physique or pretty close to it, or this time will be different than last time. And you can't push the body to those levels of extremeness and hold on. And, it sucks because you love doing the photo shoots after competing. You look amazing. You get to wear street clothes and whatnot. But I know posting those pictures as well. And I've had, women, this is my goal body. And I'm like, I looked like that for 2 days, like, it's like, I didn't even look like that, So yeah, it's frustrating, but I think that you aren't going to know that unless you go through it and have that strong mentality too, to think, not to attach like a failure to, coming out of a competition, because, the goal is to step on stage. The goal isn't to keep that physique, Yeah.
And that was another thing one of my first coaches taught me, because I was somebody who was prioritizing all the other things outside of the actual competition around the competition. So I was prioritizing the photo shoots, the theme wear that I needed to wear, because the other division I had been in, it required theme wear. And so I'm working on like my theme wear designer, like talking back and forth, sending over all these like samples of what I want, trying it on, sending it back, trying it on, sending it back, getting it shipped to my hotel. Is it going to get there? And I was having all these external stressors around the competition without focusing on the competition itself. And I will say that my actual physique and my performance in the actual competition started to improve drastically after he was like, stop doing all this extra stuff, just compete. Just get on that stage and show up in the way that you wanted to show up and the goals that you wanted to accomplish. So I remember that second time we did a prep together, I scheduled no photo shoots. I did a very, very simple theme wear. I didn't stress about it at all. I didn't have a theme wear designer. I built it all myself. And I was like, wow, this is great. This is the best I've ever looked on stage. And, obviously I got home and I think I did a couple photo shoots from home, but that look at that point, a couple, week or two, I was a little bit more strategic about it. I was like, look, I don't want to do stage lean photo shoots. I want to do a little bit more realistic. And so I started to always do more realistic photo shoots. And so if there's anybody who is listening, who is a fitness professional, I highly, highly recommend building your portfolio with very realistic images of yourself, not only for your own client base, but for your own mental health and your own body image health as well. Because I'm very fortunate. I don't have a lot of photos of me being very, 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 very lean. There might be a couple check-in photos here and there, and maybe like, you know, a couple ab checks in my gallery on my phone, but I really I stopped glorifying that body as much. And I became a better competitor when I stopped glorifying that body.
Yeah. It's even very similar to like you mentioned like the Shape and the Oxygen magazines. And I remember, you know, you'd see Nicole Wilkins or Amanda Latona on it, and they'd be more in their off-season look. And people would even, who aren't familiar with the sport, would think, oh, like Nicole lost muscle for this. And it's like, no, she's got her 10 pounds of off-season body fat on.
Yeah.
So it looks more attainable. It looks like but she still has the capacity to, you know, drop that and step on stage and look.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because my YouTube channel is probably the place in which most people can really see my body and it's in the leanest states that it was in, because you could see all the peak week videos of me training. And when you see a peak week video of training, man, like that's skin to the bone kind of thing, skin to muscle, skin to bone, like that's all you're seeing. And like, so now when I post a workout video, you know, there's these people that, you know, YouTube's a crazy environment just in general, but
yes,
the comments are very funny. They're like, I don't understand, you melted away all your muscle, I don't understand how you like this look for yourself over the other look. And I'm like, oh my God, you people, I didn't melt away my muscle. I still have muscle. It's just, there's body fat now on my body. That's the only thing. That's what makes us look softer. It's not that the muscle is no longer there.
yeah. Well, it's amusing to the people that it's like, there's so much information out there. If you want to learn about something, educate yourself before you make a comment on, you know, because it just lends to their ignorance, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I mean, even my own mom was very, very, very ignorant to what I was doing, because, you know, she was a former runner. So she just always wanted to be smaller. And she's always been, you know, the kind of woman who's like, oh, I got 3 pounds on the scale, I better not eat that. Or, you know, I've been able to keep this 3 pounds off, I'm going to try to see if I can keep it off. Like just those little comments. She was always that kind of, you know, mom in my eyes. Like that's always been a fixation for her. And so I remember going back after my first competition season and coming back home, and, you know, my mom going, so this is how you're going to look from now on? Like, this is great. And I'm like, it's not great. First off, I'm very hungry. I'm very tired. And I have to wake up tomorrow to do cardio.
Right.
And it's my wedding weekend, but we won't go there.
Did you really?
Yeah, I competed through my wedding too. It's not the best.
Oh my gosh.
My poor dress. Like I had so many different fittings. It would like not fit, then it would fit, then it would not fit, then it would fit. It's awful. I would not recommend it. And in fact, that's like one of my biggest like pet peeves is somebody who like wants to compete during, like a client wise, wants to compete during their wedding season. Yeah. And I'm just going, oh gosh, so much external stress that doesn't need to be a part of the equation for either event, I'm always like, do you want to have sex with your husband when you have your honeymoon, or you want to be like crabby and like want to beat him and eat a cheeseburger? Like this is nobody was so educated, I guess, on this sport in 2012 when I got married and when I decided to compete during my wedding season. Like I just wasn't being educated on this stuff. Like, and I don't think we all knew. Like I think the level of education around coaching and around this sport is just exponentially grown over the years, which is phenomenal. It needed to. But so there's a lot of mistakes that obviously I've done in the past that I really try to talk to my clients from a deeper level of like, here's what not to do. But I mean, if you want to do it, like, I mean, you're paying me to do it, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm warning you, and that it's not going to be easy. Even just dieting in general around your wedding is challenging, but that's, you know, you add the competing to it. It's a big one. But my mom was just like, I don't understand. You like lose 10 pounds, you gain it back, and then you gain 15, and then you lose 15, and then you gain 20, and now you're losing 20. And she's like, when does it stop? And I'm like, well, you know, eventually I'm going to stop. I stopped now. And she's like, okay, so like, are you going to go on a diet now? Because you're like 20 pounds up from your stage weight. And I'm like, no, I'm not. But this has actually been the first season. And I do think it has a lot to do with the amount of muscle mass that I finally did end up gaining I think my stage weight, my lowest my stage weight got was like 135, 136 for wellness. And now I sit relatively comfortably with, I would say, at least 500 to 600 calories more a day. And I'm sitting at, 145, 146. After untracked meals or after a weekend, I might pop up to 147, 149 maybe. But like I'm still within this like 5 pound threshold that I'm like comfortably at, because I think it's the amount of muscle mass I finally did end up putting on my body. So I was able to just be so much more calorically resilient now.
Yeah. And with what you're doing, you're going to hold on to all that as well. So, I think there has to be an endpoint. And I think usually what it comes down to is that most people will gain about 10 pounds of muscle over the course of a 10-year span. And hopefully you hold on to that plus another, 10 pounds of body fat or whatever. So very cool. Very cool. So, what else? I know you had mentioned hormones a little bit, having healthy hormones. So this is a hot topic.
It is.
And, I am like a grain of salt type of a person, because I know a little bit about some of this stuff, and I'm always curious, and I want people to understand that, this isn't medical advice, but this is your experience. And so I'm curious. I know part of what I was following with your journey was, I think, I don't know if you want to talk about some of your coaches. I know you've worked with some really great coaches, and I know that I remember one part specifically, you were having some hormonal problems or something. So
so I have worked with, I've been very, very fortunate to work with two people, only two people. That's the only time I ever saw the need. I would be very particular first off. But I worked with Matt Jansen, and I currently work with Jason Theobald. I think, like I said, the level of knowledge and education around competing and bodybuilding and female specifically competitors, that level has exponentially grown. And that's a great thing. But I was one of the newcomers to the sport, in 2012. I did things probably not the best even before on my own, coaching myself, before I linked up with Matt. So Matt undid a lot of what I did to myself too. But then there became a point which, he was kind of throwing up, his hands, like, we're hitting brick wall after brick wall. There's something up here. And taking time off just kind of wasn't the answer. There was definitely going to be more that needed to be uncovered. And I knew that. And I think he knew that. And at the time, Jason was kind of a spearhead for saying, there's something wrong with all these female competitors. Like, what is going on with all of them? Like, right. they can't get their cycles back. They have a hard time, keeping a leaner off-season physique. And why and we say leaner, like a very maintainable leanness. Like, it was like, we got to go from 10% body fat, and then we're now in the 35%. And like, that's just not where we need to be either. That's another host of health issues. Like, that's where blood sugar dysregulation happens. And we can't ignore that is an unhealthy way to live either. So it's like, we go from one unhealthy spectrum to the other end within like 3 months. And he was just seeing this constantly with a lot of females. And, he was speaking and doing things that were very kind of eye-opening to me at the time. And I remember listening to a little bit about natural bodybuilders in training periodization, in training in places where you're training under circumstances where there's a high level of stress. And I just started to kind of piece all of these equations together. And I was like, okay, my training is creating a cascading effect. My nutrition and my internal hormone imbalance is related to my lack of calories for a long period of time, my low levels of body fat. Even if I was low level of body fat and I was at a relatively good calorie intake, it was just because I was at a low level of body fat. We're just not meant to hold and withstand those. And some females' bodies are more resilient than others. And I was never resilient before birth control, but I started competing and stopped taking birth control because I was married, and I was like, well, I don't really need this anymore, and it's probably not helping the equation. So I never really allowed my cycle to come back naturally in a natural term, meaning not in a contest prep.
Right.
So I probably went 5 years without having one consistently, and that's not right. That's wrong. But at the time we weren't educated. We were just like, oh, females lose their cycle when they're bodybuilding. We don't need it. It's fine. We're okay. Like there just wasn't enough education on it. There wasn't enough. There was like, oh, maybe that's kind of wrong, but like doctors say you can go without it for like 3 years and you'd be okay. Also not right.
We kind of tied it into the sport too. Oh, it's an extreme sport. Of course, you're not going to have a period. Like that makes it okay. But it's like, now that's still like, if you want to have your health afterwards, then it's not okay.
So it's not okay until the goal is accomplished, and then it becomes the target goal next, and that's your next goal. So that, and like once I started to learn like how that needed to shift, and once I started to learn how to read my blood work and have that mentorship type coaching from Jason, I started to really like understand my body to a deeper level, and I could also become an advocate for myself in those tough conversations with a nurse practitioner or an OB or my endocrinologist, because I was learning to ask the right questions. I was learning to say, I think we should test this, or I think you're wrong, and be confident to tell these medical professionals why I thought they were wrong. When an endocrinologist just tells you that you have athletic induced amenorrhea, they're like, it came from ballerinas. I remember my endocrinologist sitting in front of me and saying, well, you probably just have athletic induced amenorrhea. And the history of that is like discovered when ballerinas were really competitively danced. And I'm like, am I really getting the historical context of this instead of actually helping me get it back?
Right.
Like we're just accepting it because history shows that it's occurring. Like it's mind blowing.
Yeah. Like where's the solution though? Thanks.
Yeah. Where's the solution? And so much of the solution results in, just a Band-Aid. It's typically like a hormone replacement, like birth control. And it's just a Band-Aid versus getting to the source and then the root cause of the problem. So I had, like I said, and Matt helped me to a huge degree, love the sport again, because when I was just coaching myself, I had pushed myself so far into a hole, I never thought it was coming back out. And, Matt helped me get out of that in a great way. And then I was so far in a hole at that point hormonally that Jason helped me get out of that hole. And, he's just enlightened me in so many ways and forced me to educate myself, forced me to continue to learn and take a deeper dive into exactly how I can be a better coach for all these women. Like it's kind of unreal how bad it can get. My case is not even some of the worst.
Well, I wanted to say two things. One, I know when you were working with Matt, I think that's probably where you got a good chunk of your education on training, right? Because I remember, you going through, what your lifts were supposed to look like in those videos of evaluating training performance and everything else. And I love that you have, that's kind of the beauty of different coaches. It's like, where do you want to learn? What do you want to work on right now? Because there are people that are educated in all avenues, but a lot of them do have specialties. And then obviously Jason is very focused on, hormones and women's health and that type of thing. Especially, he has a supplement line and everything else.
Yeah. That everything in that supplement line has been part of my protocols for years. And I do credit a lot of that.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. So what were some of the things that you were asking your doctors about? What were you testing? And then how did you actually get your period back? What did that process look like? What were the behaviors that needed to take place?
Yeah. So it wasn't, honestly, it is to a degree feeding myself a little bit more. But that threshold, I think coaches and people think that threshold is kind of all that there is. And I could have my cycle at, 1,300 calories, at 1,500 calories, at 16, at 17, I could have it at all those thresholds. So why, when I would get down to 16 again, did I lose it? Like, what's going on there? It's not just the food equation. So that's where I learned about training and energy availability. So hypothalamic amenorrhea, or AHA, that is, excuse me, based on your energy availability. And if you are over exerting and under consuming for that exertion, you're going to see an imbalance there. And so it's not always the calories in that is the culprit there. It most of the time is your overall energy availability and where that threshold lies. So then training becomes a huge part of that equation that people are absolutely ignoring, 100% ignoring. Like, I mean, I have inquiries come in left and right, and I get on the call with them and they're like, yeah, you know, my coach knows that I haven't had a cycle for a little bit of time. We've decreased my training. We're going 4 days a week. We've increased my food. I'm eating 2,000 calories and I still don't have my cycle. And I'm like, okay, you know, well, I'll uncover, we'll figure it out. Once we get you started, I'll be able to see really the full picture. And I look at it and there's only 4 workouts in there, but there's 10 to 14 movements. And I'm like, how long are you in the gym? And they're like, well, like an hour and a half to like maybe 2 hours, because we're only training 4 days a week. And I'm like,
right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, you can
I would rather you train 6 days a week and only have 45-minute workouts, because guess what? Each day you're eating 16 or 1,700 calories, but you're only training 45 minutes. Right. So it's like it's like this way more energy availability that you're having on a daily, on a consistent, you know, on a 7-day span, you're having more energy availability, even though you're training a little bit less, but now training more days. And now you're getting to train and be physically active more days. And your cardiovascular system is improving, and you actually probably are a little bit more sane, because that's the thing that most women lose their sanity over, is decreasing how often they go to the gym. And so it's like trying to find this balance. And, you know, I think that is a huge missing gap, is the training equation. But when it comes to supplementation and the type of blood work that you have to do, the first thing you have to look at is most of the time blood sugar regulation, because blood sugar dysregulation is going to typically show up secondary in hormonal imbalances. So it's like blood glucose levels are a huge indicator. And then you uncover the hormones, and you see, like, you know, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, prolactin, you know, LH, FSH. You look at all those things and see where there's less optimal functioning. If there's less optimal ranges, meaning you are in the lower end of the spectrum, because all of those ranges are developed based on the general population. Yeah. So if you are an athlete, athlete, you shouldn't just be okay with falling in, you know, the optimal range. If you're on that lower end, you're really so far from optimal, it's not even funny. So, and you're more at risk for literally every little thing you do if you're in the lower end. So if anything there is in the lower end, now it's like, okay, let's look at the metabolic aspects. Let's look at your thyroid functioning. And so we can start to uncover a lot of which can be uncovered through those 3 pathways. And then of course the digestive tract comes into the equation a lot of times. And that's where, you know, working with kind of maybe a gastrointestinal specialist or somebody with food allergies, you know, an nutrition allergy specialist. So then you can kind of see how the gut's performing, because most of the time when the hormones are imbalanced, the gut's not performing as it optimally should either. Your absorption rates are pretty low, your digestive rate and elimination rates are low. So you typically, like, those are like the pathways of figuring out the whole equation. But most of the time, it starts with the person's energy availability. Almost 100% of the equation of hypothalamic amenorrhea comes down to how much food are you consuming, but then how much energy is leaving the body of that food consumption. Because again, I've had my cycle at 1,500 calories and I've not had it at 2,000 before. So where is that? Why do people just want to think it's a food thing? It's not a food thing.
Right. Well, and like you said before, if somebody is training 6 days a week and then they move to 4 days a week, now they have more rest days and they have more energy to push harder in those other days as well. So that also, and I think a lot of women look at dieting and training as a daily thing, whereas looking at a longer term, a bigger picture amount of time, like a week, because weight does go up and down, from one day to the next. And it doesn't mean that you gained body fat or, whatever. So I think sometimes we get a little bit too specific with the daily and understand, like, you need to see how a week is feeling. And like you said, the energy balance over the course of a week rather than, one day to the next necessarily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of times the stress that comes mentally from cutting somebody's training down to only 4 days, sometimes that stress does a miraculous thing to the body's cortisol levels. And we didn't really talk about cortisol because I feel like cortisol is in like the blood sugar and hormone transition period, or within that capsule of data. Cortisol still falls in there, and it's amazing what our own brains can do to our stress levels, and how that affects things, especially when it comes to females.
Yeah. So do you think that sometimes it's not necessary to do all the blood work, but you can evaluate what's going on in their life and start making lifestyle adjustments, and you don't necessarily have to know blood work or what's going on, and you can make these lifestyle adjustments and correct things without actually doing all the blood work.
Yeah, so blood work is expensive, first off, and not all insurance is gonna pay for it multiple times throughout the year. And most of the time if you are having these issues, you do need to be checking things about every 8 weeks, if you're at this point, and that can get very, very costly. So like you said, the biggest thing is watching somebody's training productivity, and not just watching it from, did they accomplish all their movements, but like, what's their volume, where's their RPE in training. I have multiple clients in this school of hormonal imbalance, and one of the biggest things I discuss with them is, do you feel like did you have reps in the tank or reps in reserve? So RAR is called reps in reserve, and I require my clients who are in these imbalanced situations to have reps in reserve at the conclusion of every single set, every single movement. And if we're in a good spot, and I say good spot theoretically, meaning we haven't been traveling, we haven't been under stress from work, we've had a consistent 4 to 5 weeks of just like really good feedback, good sleep, good digestion. We've had cycles, and I'm like, all right, so based on the cycle coming back, based on where we're at, in your follicular or luteal phase, like there's a point at which you can push that envelope a little bit. So I give them a little bit. I tell them, like, okay, let's take off the governor a little bit. You can train to where set 4 is to failure, only set 4 and only in these movements. That's it. And so I really, really like, we nitpick and cherry pick our data a little bit, and cherry pick what we allow or what I allow happen. But reps in reserve is a big way to do that without, having to necessarily see blood work. Checking somebody's sleep patterns and their elimination patterns. You can improve elimination from a supplemental standpoint, but and from a nutritional standpoint. You can focus more so on fiber, types of fiber, and you can care a little bit less about their carbohydrate content if their fiber content's a little bit higher. So you can let them take a little bit of ease off of consistent tracking if we're getting enough fiber and we're tracking fiber. Most of the time bringing proteins down in a hormonal dysregulation situation improves digestion greatly. That's kind of one of the culprits of the bodybuilder diet, is the high protein diet. And there's nothing we can ignore about proteins, being from a hormonal source, from another animal, from a living, breathing animal in most cases. And, when you're an overabundance of those, you're just, even if you're buying hormone free, range free, yada, yada, yada. It just still can add up, and it can add up on taxing your digestive tract as well. One of the biggest things that, Jason and I did with my system, because my digestion was so poor, was we removed, mammal meat and chicken out of my diet for, I would say probably 6 to 9 months, when I was at the peak of my worst feedback and worst blood work we've ever seen, really, on paper. Still to this day, I've only seen a couple worse than me, and that was very expensive for me, to eat nothing but seafood. And I think we did add eggs in, but no egg whites. It was so challenging for me, to reach the amount of protein quote that I would need, but we brought my protein needs down anyway. So
what is the goal with that? Because seafood has protein, or has hormones too, right? Because every animal has protein or hormones, sorry.
Yeah.
So what is your body is not, it's adding those hormones to your body, or it's not processing them? I don't know the science behind that.
So, well, it also has to do with the bioavailability of the protein. A lot of complete amino acid, or complete proteins, they have a higher bioavailability, but then it comes down to digestibility as well. So chicken and mammal meat and steak, it typically takes from mastication, from even in your mouth, that breakdown and the enzymes. It's just a lot more of it's a harder process for your body to break it down.
I got you. I was thinking,
whereas seafood and a whole egg just typically don't require that much breakdown process to go on. And we were just seeing a lot of digestive effects from eating those sources that I was eating every day, maybe twice a day. Every contest prep quote bodybuilder, even if they're not on a meal plan, even if they're following macros, and they're doing if it fits my macros type of eating, they're eating chicken once or twice a day.
Right.
Or they're eating ground beef once or twice a day.
Right.
They're eating these protein sources, multiple feedings. Therefore, it's creating an environment internally in their digestive tract that's just not, supportive long-term. And you start to be, you can create yourself sensitivities to food by eating that kind of food so regularly.
Okay.
And that's what people forget too.
All right. Yes, I'm familiar with the bioavailability part, and that some of those other, especially beef, has a lot more sinew, a lot more connective tissue that is going to possibly clog up your intestines a lot easier than.
Yeah, just your digestive tract can get more bogged down.
Yes. All right. Very good. Very good. Let's see. So where else were we going with this? How are things going with your client? You're like, I don't know.
Clients are great. We're getting into the holiday season, so I encourage anybody who's listening that if they are looking for a coach, you really probably should have one in the holiday season. And I agree that, most people don't think about it till January comes around, but there is beauty in maintaining and understanding, what that looks like for you through the holidays. But that also gives the coach an opportunity to get to know you and to get to know your body before you have the intentions of dieting. I can tell you right now that 95% of the inquiries that I have want to diet, but aren't in a place to diet. And as a coach, I can't actually put them in a diet because I don't know their bodies that well. And I'm not going to put a body through a diet that I don't know. And so if anybody's looking for a very, very valuable coaching experience and sustainable long-term results out of a coaching program, they need to be gracious enough to give a coach more than 4 weeks to get to know their body before their intentions to do a diet happen. So this is really the time that you should be seeking out a coach or a program of some sort to kind of keep you in line through the holidays. And I say keep in line because you should be spending some quality time with family and friends. There should be some food involved, but learning how to do that is so helpful, and having the accountability of a coach every week is even more helpful for you to keep your goal in February in the forefront of your brain. Like, you know, that's my job, is to remind my clients, hey, you know, you wanted to diet, and we're going to be ready in February after you take all of these travel trips that you're going to do. And we're going to learn how to essentially not gain weight through the holiday season. Like, any client of mine who doesn't gain weight or maintains their weight within like 2 to 3 pounds through the holidays, whew, I feel like I just feel like we won $1 million. Like, that's perfect. That's exactly what you should expect. You should not expect any more, and you honestly should not expect any less. Like, if a coach that you're, you know, working with doesn't allow or teach you how to go about things untracked through the holiday season, you're not getting a good service. You're not getting a sustainable program out of that. Now, if your goal is to step on stage in March, well, you know, this conversation probably doesn't apply to you. You better have already probably started your diet here in November. It's coming up. So like competition season, if you're an early March competitor, then this doesn't apply to you. But in most cases, if you're, you know, even stepping on stage April and May, you can pretty much not have to go into a hard diet until probably I would say December. But yeah, lifestyle clients, yeah, not gaining any weight through the holidays, or only 3 pounds, like that's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, I think I would say that's the goal of most general population. They probably don't even realize that women, that it's like, you know, you gain body fat every year. So a year that you don't gain any body fat is a very successful year, because you have done something to manage your relationship with, you know, your behaviors.
Yep.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on quickly about, you had said, you know, you're talking about training volume, and I think how women train, you know, do you get this a lot when women come to you for inquiries, that they're doing a lot of classes, or doing a lot of, you know, even like, you know, supersets, and not having the rest periods between sets, and just always trying to keep the heart rate up, always trying to sweat, always trying to burn calories? Do you get that a lot? Yes,
absolutely. So a good workout is not indicative of how much you sweat.
Right.
It's whether your heart rate's up does not indicate a good workout. A good workout is, were you progressive? Did you lift something heavier than you did the last time? Did you improve in your form in any way, shape, or form, in any movement? Did you execute better? Yeah. Those are indicative of good workouts, not how much you're sweating, not how many calories you burned. Yeah. Oh my God, if I got that one more time. And not how high your heart rate was. Yeah. Those to me, they matter nothing. Yeah. They matter nothing. If you didn't improve in some way, shape, or form from the workout, then you didn't, in my opinion, get a good workout. And I still think that there is ways to improve, even in that hormonal dysfunction situation. Like, I was just talking to, you know, my client week 2 this morning, and we're under that equation. Hasn't had a cycle. And, you know, she sent back her training logs, and, you know, I saw that she brought her weight down in set 3 or 4, because for 10 reps, she couldn't maintain that weight. So then I'm like, okay, well, you attempted that weight in set 1 and 2, but you made acknowledgement that that was too heavy for any further concluding sets. So what we're going to do is we're going to let you still lift that heavier weight, but we're just going to drop your reps. We're going to go down to 8 instead of 10. And let's see if we can do that for maybe 3 sets this week before having to drop down. That is progression in itself. She was now able to lift something heavier for another set. The reps just had to change. And if you're a coach and you're programming training, and you're not looking with a fine-tooth comb into a strength log in that way to find the little ounce of progression that you possibly can, then again, you're not progressing your client. And that's another thing. I think some coaches just kind of give up on training progression in a hormonal dysfunction space. I've always been able to gain muscle tissue in a hormonally dysfunctional place. That's something that you know, it's not going to come at a high degree. It's not going to come on as much, but I still was always able to progressively train, even under a quote governor situation where I'm not going to failure, and I'm not, you know, doing a ton of supersets, and I'm not skipping my rest periods between sets. I've always rested between sets. I've always, maybe too much, because I shouldn't train with my phone, but I'm guilty. And there's always room for progression, even in these settings too. But yeah, the classes situation, man, the people who feel like they need to sweat to have been successful in their workout, like I kind of get that, but like you could also just go sit in a sauna and you could sweat just as much, if not more. And a lot of times it's a hydration and electrolyte balance at that point, and then the client is totally inflamed after that workout there, and that's just because their whole electrolyte balance is thrown off anyways. So we won't go into that. Like I can pinpoint that. Normally I know in a tracking situation where my client's tracking their weight, and I see this with runners a lot, or people who are trying to like hold on to running because it gives them this like great workout and this endorphin energy, whatever. So they'll be holding on to running. And then, so I'll be like, all right, well, we'll run, one run a week. Let's see what happens. And then lo and behold, they're losing weight all of a sudden. And then we run and we eat the same amount of food as we were training. Yeah. And then the scale pops up 2 to 3 pounds. And I'm like, well, if this is an indication of inflammation, I don't know what is. Are you ready to give up running now?
It's tough because I've had that with clients before too. And it's like, can I run and weight train? I'm like, you can, but do you want to progress in either one of them? Like you got to pick your poison, Yeah.
You've got to pick your goal. You've got to fine tune your goal. And you have to really know what it is that you physically want. And that's a very loaded question. And I understand that for a lot of women, because they're like, I want to look like this, but I want to do this. And most of the time, what they want to look like and what they want to do are two totally different things.
Oh,
I mean, it's so far from each other that they are not even in the same school of thought most of the time. Right. And so, that's where having a coach to actually like open up your eyes to that. Like when I finally get to a point with a client where it's like their body is performing optimally. They've started to see progress in the gym. They've started to see progress in their training. And now in their physique, it starts to happen. It's like I'm some angel that's come down from heaven to give them this. And I'm like, well, you really just listened and you absorbed and you took everything that I said and you applied that. You did that, but it just took really getting you to do it and really like being accepting of like, this is what I'm trying to really chase. This is what I'm trying to really, really accomplish. And I didn't perform any miracle. In fact, I think it's always the client who performs the miracle, because they had to change their brain. They had to wrap their mind around the science of it all and understand that whatever they were doing in the past, if it wasn't getting them to their goal, they had to make a change if they wanted to see a change, because you can't just keep spinning your wheel and expect to end up, anywhere but the same place you're in. If you're in that hamster wheel right now, like that's one thing I can tell, plenty of people is if you're in a hamster wheel and you're not getting the results that you want, you're probably gonna have to do something that you're not doing in order to get the results that you do want.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times I honestly feel like it's not nearly as much or as hard as what they've been pushing themselves to do, because
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's something that you can be consistent with. And that's why they've seen results for the first time, is because, I've had this with a ton of clients within 8 weeks, and they're like, the scale hasn't moved at all. And then you do their side-by-side pictures and you're like, kind of looks like you lost 10 pounds, even though, the scale has hardly moved, so. Yeah.
Well, and I get it from a lot of clients too. It's like, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I've been tapped. I've been doing all these things for all these other people, yada, yada, yada. And I look in their tracker and they got all their training in. And I'm like, okay, so you're so strapped for time that we can't go to the grocery store. We can't meal prep. We can't plan what you're going to eat out in advance or eat in advance in any way, shape, or form. You're totally going on the fly here. But we accomplished every single workout. Right. So I'm like, Okay. I hear you. But I also hear your dependency on working out now. And I see that. So
Yeah.
I see that you are prioritizing training because you're so dependent on it.
Yeah.
So, but the missing link here is that you're not taking out the time to actually fuel your body properly for that training to actually be productive. So let's step back and let's say you took off 2 days this week of training and you spent the first day going to the grocery store during that window. Then you spent the second day during that window of time cooking your food in advance, preparing some food to have on the fly, making maybe a couple meals in a Tupperware. God forbid, I know you eat out of a Tupperware, but it's like there has to be some level of consistency at first.
Yeah.
At first, that has to happen. And then, guess what? Those other 2 workouts that you now get to do because you have all this time are fueled properly. And now, even after 3 workouts for the week, you see more progress than you've seen in weeks on end. And so that's like one of the other big lessons that I have to teach a lot of people who are so dependent on these workouts, so dependent on physical activity that's being unfueled or fueled improperly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think if COVID taught us anything, it was that, you can't just rely on the gym being open to undo your poor diet.
No, you can't. Or relieve your stress. You're gonna have to figure out how to relieve stress another way.
Yeah, and that was really tough. It was a huge lesson. I mean, for myself as well. I don't know if I still don't have an answer. I ended up buying a bunch of gym equipment in case the gym shut down.
Yeah, I mean, everybody did. I mean, but we also learned that your health and being physically active is one of your biggest, barriers to the disease or to the virus. So that's, there's nothing wrong with fully equipping yourself with a gym. But yeah, I think a lot of people, definitely, just like I said, depend so much more on training, regardless of whether that training is productive or not. And when your goal is to have productive training, but you're doing the exact opposite of that goal, then I always, like I said, I always tell my clients, like, I'm cutting your training down to 3 days and I'm expecting you to use that additional hour on the other days to actually take care of your food, like actually feed yourself. Show up for yourself for those 2 hours so you can show up more powerfully for all this other stuff you have to do. And that's the other thing I think a lot of people don't realize is you can't keep pushing yourself out of the equation and expect to be better in all the other aspects of the equations of your life.
Yeah. Well, like literally putting all your eggs in one basket, and if you don't distribute that stuff and put the effort, it's better to put 70% into the 5 different variables than to put 100% into one, because all these other ones are going to take that one down. It just, that doesn't make a healthy person. It's not going to progress you to your, physique or health goals. So
yeah.
Well, this was really awesome. Where can women find you if they're looking for a coach?
So you can find me at audaciousathletes.com. We have an inquiry there where you can fill out. I ask that you are very, very detailed in that, so we can decide what the best pathway is for you. Once that inquiry is filled out, then we get on a call with your prospective coach, whether that be myself or one of my other additional coaches on my team. And the call is a discovery call to figure out, where you're at in your potential journey with your goals. Like, where do we need to start? So it's not necessarily, it's not a sales pitch call. It's me wanting to take a deeper dive into the actual goal that you have and what you've been trying to do to get to that goal, and then maybe educate you a little bit on what that pathway is going to look like to maybe make that goal happen. And it's pretty eye-opening. I find that most clients, whether they join our roster or not, they leave having some idea of what they can do and some education along the way as well. Then you can find me at chanelcolette.com. I have lots of programs there. I have my full bio there. Obviously, I did brand my coaching team differently than just myself. I didn't want myself to always be the star of the show, if that makes sense. I definitely wanted a team of people who can, be the forefront of the business as a whole for coaching. Then you can find me at Chanel Colette on Instagram and YouTube, Chanel Colette as well. I'm not as involved on YouTube as I used to be. Obviously competing gave for wonderful content through competition seasons for YouTube and stuff. And obviously when I was competing, my level of client load was lower. It had to be. Like when one goal is, to do that to your body, certain things have to come down. So my level of coaching and the amount of clients that I have now is just exponentially increased since I have stepped from the stage. So that means that YouTube becomes a low hanging fruit. I have a lot of people who depend on me on a day-to-day basis now. And YouTube, people's comments about my muscle melting away, it doesn't really pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah. And my full days include here. Like I pretty much sit in my office for 12 to 14 hours and nobody really wants to watch that. And my training at this point, like I've put 4 years of training on YouTube. I'm not coming at YouTube with a different program really, or a different style of training. It's all really the same. And the full days of eating are literally the same pretty much. Like nothing has been elaborately different about my life. So content seems very repetitive in YouTube for me right now, recently. But I do have fun with YouTube. I miss being a part of that editing environment and the creativity around it. But I also really just love what I do. And, when you have to grow a coaching business, priorities have to, shift.
You've done kind of the Cliff Notes version by being kind of spicy with your reels on Instagram. Those have been fun.
Yeah. I fought the reels for a while because I don't I don't personally consume reels when it's somebody like directing me to read the screen and different, this is a recorded conversation, but you're getting to see me point. But me personally, when I look at the reels, like somebody's really got to be like, their personality has to be captivating to me. Their facial expressions have to be there. When they're just pointing at the screen in different ways and looking at the screen, it just doesn't hold for me. And I think once reels started to happen, that's what I was seeing more in the fitness community. And I was like, I don't really know if I can do that. So I've done a couple here and there, but I also just like the content being somewhat of an act, and then I get to educate in the comment section or the caption. Now, if people don't look at the caption, which is common, then maybe a couple of the things that I put on the screen are informative enough, but most of the time it's mainly just a way to communicate in the caption. And I found that it's better because I don't take selfies anymore. I don't know, I was going to post one today actually, because I was like, I've taken a selfie maybe one time in the past 2 weeks. That's not just me wearing a cute outfit that I'm excited about the outfit. It's not me in the gym. I don't train in a gym with mirrors anymore. I don't look at myself before I go to the gym in my mirror at home to see if my outfit matches. It's so many of my priorities now that I don't pay attention to my physique as much. So many of my other priorities have shifted, and it's just become normal to not take a photo of myself. So I was like, wow, if somebody was to just look visually on my feed right now, I don't even know if they would know I'm in the fitness industry. Because I'm dressed up in a blazer. I'm more professional talking, in my reels. And, so I was like, oh man, I gotta do a fit selfie of some sort. I mean, nobody knows I'm in fitness.
With some throwback competition picture, and you can write all about that or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not much of the throwback kind of gal either. It just seems like I don't know. It seems I don't know, but you're right. I forget new people come and go in social media, and they may not know that I competed. They may not know that I ever got my body to that level of conditioning. So I get that. I do. But sometimes I'm just like, man, I don't want to, I feel like so many of my followers at this point are long timers, and I don't want to be boring to my long timers because they're my people. They're the people who have been here forever. So yeah, I go back and forth. Social media is weird. Posting is weird. Yeah. Some days I'm good at it. Some days I'm not. Some days things take off and some things are a complete flop, and it has no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, it's been Same. Yeah. I'm like, really, I don't really want to post another selfie. I don't, unless I have something that I think is pertinent that I want to educate. And I'm like you, I'm like, okay, I have to have a picture that goes with my thought process that I'm going to be, typing out at the bottom. So I don't know. I think if you're a teacher or a reader, Instagram is kind of a funny place for you, a platform to use, which is actually part of the reason why I really enjoy the podcast and don't always post them. I do post them on my YouTube, but not always, because it's another audience, but it's not a huge audience at all. And it does open it up to, there's just the trolls. The trolls are ridiculous. So
yeah, it's a weird culture, man. I don't know. Those keyboard warriors that exist in that platform are intense. They're intense.
I would have never thought of like, I'm going to mask my identity so that I can say some, I'm going to get you. Like, that's so weird. It's super
so weird.
Yeah. I did want to say I love that what you said about your, the assessment form, your intake form, and then an evaluation, because I think if someone is really passionate about educating themselves, maybe having a little bit of an idea, and I've had this with clients before too, you go over their information and you're like, these are 5 things right off the bat that you could be, you could change and make huge progress with. And that's kind of where I would start. And sometimes they're like, okay, I'm going to think about it. And you've planted those seeds where they can even investigate themselves. And it's never, obviously my goal is never to take business away from a coach, but I do love people educating themselves in their own manner if they think that, they want to take a little bit of a longer route to kind of figure themselves out. So I think sometimes people just have information that's been embedded in them since they were 12 years old. And that's, like, why isn't this working for me now that I'm 40, and you're like, well,
yeah, I think my intake process and my inquiry process and how I go about those coaching calls is pretty much anti what business coaches are telling. They're like, minimize your offer, be able to give your offer within 10 to 15 minutes and require them to respond in 24 hours to receive said offer. And I'm like, am I selling them a car, or am I trying to get them to accomplish a goal? Like, I don't know. That whole process of where some of what the fitness industry is, or this pass off where you're not actually getting to talk to your coach, you're talking to somebody who is your coach's assistant. Like, my assistant was doing my scheduling, but like, that was it. When it comes to the coaching process, you should be speaking to a coach. You should be speaking to somebody who can help you and give you guidance, because even if that client hasn't joined or decides not to join at that given moment, a lot of times they come back in like 4 or 6 weeks, even after that consult. And they're like, you know what? I took your advice and it like really worked. And I want to tell you, thank you for doing that. But now I'm ready to sign up, because like, now I know that I can do this and I don't have these apprehensions on my own accord. And they're like, I implemented that and I did it. Or they're like, I saw that it could be done, but I needed more accountability and I need I need a coach to be more accountable. So if you lead with education, you lead with actually treating them like a human when they are wanting to speak to a coach and wanting to have some answers, and you give them some of those, even in that consult call. Like, I don't even discuss pricing. Like, I'm like, no, at the end of the call, you're going to get an email and it's going to open up the back end of the website and you're going to now see all the pricing and all the different training programs that we do offer. But here's what you and I are going to talk to about today. I'm going to ask you a couple questions that might be a little bit tough based on what you've provided me, but the tough answer or the tough questions are going to kind of uncover what we need to learn about you and to see how you're going to fit in this coaching environment. And like I said, business coaches will probably tell me I'm doing it wrong, but I mean, I treat coaching as a human to human situation.
Yeah. And I think that's how I think trust in this day and age, getting somebody's trust, especially in a short period of time. I mean, you just don't see it anymore because everybody is skeptical about everything. And it's like, what are you selling? And it's like, okay, I do have to pay my bills, with this or whatever, but I also I want to help somebody, and their success is my success. It's all, it's all tied together. So, do you have time for a couple of quick fun questions?
Sure.
Okay. So this is like my new favorite question. I used to ask people what their music style was, but now I would like to know, if you were to walk into a room and a theme song played every time, what would your theme song be?
Well, one of my prep like theme songs was Monster by Jacob Banks. But I still really like it. Nobody knows this song. So like anybody who actually, nobody knows the song, but it's just so empowering. I love it. But another one, I mean, I don't know, that's probably it. Like, I hear it and I just get so amped up. Okay. And I feel like I can just accomplish so much. Right. And it also reminds me that I have accomplished so much, and that like I am worthy of having that kind of monster mentality. Like it's all around good song. So, but it's an interesting song and not many people know it.
All right, we're gonna have to look that one up. Everybody's gonna need to like play that right before they run into the gym.
Yeah, it's definitely a before you go into the gym kind of song. And if you do have a big goal and you're like in the nitty gritty part of that goal, like you're gonna love that song.
Awesome. What is your favorite and least favorite thing about social media? I know we touched on this a little bit, but
yeah. So my favorite thing is shared experience. I think we forget. We often feel sometimes in the depths of depression or in the depths of sorrow, or in the depths of loss, that we feel that we're in a vacuum and that it's just us existing and fighting through this thing alone, and that we're solo and nobody's ever experienced it. But then, you come across your favorite Instagram person and they're talking about what they're really actually going through. And you realize that, man, like that story is similar. I'm not in a vacuum by myself, just kind of fighting tooth and nail for this. But like there is shared experiences that can be shared more fluidly, and also just shared at a higher capacity to reach multiple people at a given time through social media. And that's really, really cool. And I didn't used to share much about my personal life on Instagram. It used to be all business, all training, all nutrition, all competing, all bodybuilding. And then I started to like just share more about myself and, my hyperhidrosis that I have in my hands and my feet that causes my hands to sweat like crazy. When I started to share that, people were like, oh my God, no influencers ever shared that they have that. I have it too. And so, people just gain that just like, that relatability. But relatability, I feel like doesn't encompass everything that I, just kind of mentioned, of like just feeling that shared experience. Now, the worst thing I hate about it is the fact that you, as a person, you have to repeat yourself so often. You have to have almost like this cadence to you. You have to say the same things over and over again. You have to wear the same things over and over again. You have to develop this entire persona. I mean, I'm following a couple of reel accounts, actually. Like that's what they do. They teach people how to do reels, and they make a huge living out of this. Like these are people that, like, I didn't even know this career would exist, but now it exists. Yeah. And I've embraced it. But she wears the same outfit for every reel, every time. Even on her story, she's in the same outfit. And that level of like, I guess some people like that. Obviously, I'm following her for a reason. So obviously, but it drives me nuts. I'm like, man, I know nothing about this girl other than she wears a pink blazer. She teaches people how to do reels. She's a business coach. She has some sort of plan. Cool. I'm following her stuff. I save it. I use it. But like, I literally think she's like a robot. Like it's not real. Like I see people say the same things. They use the same filter and they only use that filter. And then I'm like, what do they even look like in real life? Yeah. Like this level of repeated stuff. It's just like, oh, sometimes I'm like, I got to get out of this. If I feel like I'm in a vacuum at that point. And so when that vacuum comes into the equation, I'm like, I got to get out of this app. I gotta go be with human bodies. I gotta go not look at filtered screens. I gotta go, I gotta go be tactile with things. I gotta go use my hands for something other than like scrolling. So that would like that repetitive nature. But like my husband tells me about it. He's like, your intros on YouTube need to be the same. Your closing outros need to be the same. He's like, you need to have the same kind of music. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's
all that
all branding. That's all your branding.
Oh yeah. And when people are like, this is so on brand, that literally drives me nuts.
I've never heard that before.
Like, oh, this is so on brand for me. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh,
like,
some of the verbiage is pretty crazy too. Cause I'm like, looking at words, I
didn't know what thought was until a couple months ago. My assistant told me what a thought was. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that all this time.
It's like 5 years.
Has that term been around for 5 years? I really thought it was just new.
No, it's been around for like 5 years. It's so funny.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Like those are just part of social media that I'm never gonna like. I just don't buy into it yet.
Yeah.
That culture of you making up words and then like you reusing people's words. I mean, I know I've done it. I'm sure we're all guilty of it, but I don't like actively try to just kind of become this like robot on there.
Yeah. Or, I memean, because something is trendy. I remember what was that? There was some word that people were using all the time. So then we would say it jokingly, because it's like, there's no way I can get away with actually using this word like in my everyday. I don't even remember, all I can think of is like Mean Girl stuff when like she was saying fetch, which isn't.
Yeah, stuff like that. I know.
Stuff like that, where you're just like, oh, shook. That's what I was thinking when people were like, I was so shook, and I was just like I'm 45. Like I'm never gonna say I'm shook. Like what?
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Like I don't think I say that one that much either.
Yeah. So because I've learned words like I'm surprised, or
yeah.
Like,
yeah, I'm sorry. I grew up where there was a dictionary.
Right.
But the crazy thing is shook is probably in the dictionary now.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean that's something that social media has provided for us, was this ever expanding societal culture that's just growing like crazy. But yeah, I mean, and I'm not on TikTok, so I don't even know what that environment's like.
Well, when the dictionary is digital, it's pretty easy to edit it. It's not like they got to take a book off the shelf and reprint it, So
that's true. That's very true. That's so true.
Yeah. So crazy world. So I was going to ask if you're a dog or a cat person, but your dog walked by a couple of times in the background.
Yeah, I think one's right there. He's always typically in my office with me. We have 2 cats and 2 dogs. Any of the sounds that you heard was probably my cat throwing up. He's already thrown up in the call. And then the other one was sneezing. So yeah, I couldn't get up to stop that from happening. But that definitely happened during the call. And then I think this one actually ate the throw up, and I couldn't stop that from happening either. So there's that. So I am both a dog and cat person, and my house is full of great entertainment with them all.
I can't say that's ever happened on the podcast before.
Did you hear it?
I think I heard. So I don't know. I thought I heard shuffling at some point.
Yeah. Well, now if people make it to the end of the podcast, they'll know what all that sound was. Because it definitely happened, like right behind me, like right behind those stairs. I think there was the pile of throw up, but it's not there anymore because he ate it. I don't know if I'm happy that I don't have to clean it up, or that I'm sad that he ate it and he's going to lick my face later, but that's fine.
We can't make this stuff up. That's awesome. Yeah. What is your favorite body part to train?
Recently, I've really enjoyed training like more quads, because obviously, you know, well, until I got to wellness. But before in bikini, I was like, you can't train quads, you can't do leg extensions, you can't do hack squats, you can't squat. I've really enjoyed my leg programming now that my leg programming doesn't have to be so tailored to a criteria.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed that. I'm always and forever going to love training shoulders, but I am fortunate enough to not have to train them as often. So I don't actually just do a shoulder day. But whenever I'm traveling, I don't typically do upper body. I'll just do shoulders and stuff because it's easy to access and it's quick. So I do like those little workouts that I do when I do shoulders. But yeah, I'd have to say I'm really enjoying really doing leg extensions, like all kinds. Plate loaded, not plate loaded, single leg, both legs, working on, changing my tempo in them. I mean, I just like them. They're fun. And I like the detail. That's like one of the things that I still see like splits on in my physique is really within my shoulders and my quads. I still have some pretty good detail in. So it's always fun to train something that you can actually still see.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. What else was I going to ask you? Where are you living? Where do you live?
I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm not from here. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia area, outside of Atlanta. But we moved here 4 or 5 years ago now. So we moved here, 2016. So 5 years ago, and we love it here. It's a great city, great city, really good city for bodybuilding. It's a very good bodybuilding community in Louisville. We have a huge show here called the Kentucky Derby, and then the Kentucky Muscle, which is next week, or it's this weekend. My coach Jason Theobald will be in it because there is the men's physique pro show division and there's the women's figure pro show division. So even though it's an amateur show, it has 3 pro shows in it. It has the classic physique, men's physique, and figure. And so I have a good friend competing as a pro in figure, and my coach Jason competing in classic physique. And so it's like I said, it's a great bodybuilding community. It was a great community for me to come to, already doing what I was doing when I was here.
Awesome. Where are you? Do you have siblings, and where are you in the birth order?
I have a half brother. We have different dads, and I am the youngest, but we are 9 years apart. So we were never really like in school together. He didn't live with us after I was 6. He moved in with his father. So birth order, doesn't quite matter because I was always pretty much the only child at home for a long time.
Yeah, more of an only, which kind of explains your level of organization and your drive. I feel like that's pretty common with onlys.
Yeah, and my mom she was a single mom, and worked full time Monday through Friday, sometimes even Saturdays. So I had to be very independent. I had to be very self-sufficient, and be very resilient in terms of like what I was tolerating. Like I didn't have after school activities. I didn't need somebody I just had to like kind of fend for myself. I was a latchkey kid. I made my bed, starting at like 3 or something. My mom was like, you're gonna make your bed before you come downstairs. You're gonna eat exactly what's on the plate. If you don't want it, you don't eat. Like that was just the rule in the house.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's kind of different than you see a lot of parenting now. It's much more strict. I can appreciate, I always say that discipline is love, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a very, very much so like it, and it wasn't a matter of discipline. Like she didn't have to like spank me much or anything like that. It was just like, I couldn't cross her, like, and I couldn't question her rules or whatever. Like it is what it is. And if, if I didn't have any say so in it. Like I just did my own thing. I was like, oh, this is just how things go with her. And, this is just how it's going to roll.
Yeah. All right. So if you were to recommend someone to be on the podcast to be interviewed, who do you think that women would benefit from hearing from?
I think that one of the people that I admire a great deal is my assistant coach, Brittany Lauzon. She's awesome and everything that she's been through as an athlete, and as a female athlete, and now as a new mom, and just like her story is just really impactful. And then I also really enjoy Megan Santa Barbara. Do you know who she is?
Yes. Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah.
I think her story is also exceptionally empowering, and just her journey as a physique competitor at such a young age and what she's accomplished at such a young age. And again, her, she doesn't have it all figured out yet either. I mean, she's very vulnerable to that degree, and it's very, very beautiful because she's moved from, a pro card in women's figure to maybe doing what the judges said and maybe going into women's physique. And now she's streamlining her physique down to wellness, because that's where she truly sees her body right now. And that's what she sees for herself. And I think that's so, like, just her pathway of doing all of that, like I said, at such a young age, is just very, very admirable. And we just don't see that enough out of female competitors, of like, one, listening to what the judges say, making that attempt and doing it every bit that they could, and then realizing that, okay, I did what the judges said, but I also learned that that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to do what's for me. And so I think both of those are just highly respectful. I really, let me think. Do you just pretty much exclusively do interviews with women?
So I do right now. I have a
Okay.
pretty long list of guys that I've already talked to Jason about being on. And I think maybe after the turn of the year, I'll start adding some men on. Did you have anything else besides Jason?
I really enjoy Austin Stout. I've done a couple mentor calls with him on, different client protocols. He's somebody kind of like I would reach out to for coaching advice, so to speak. Alan Kress is another one. Alan Kress is wonderful. Yeah. He's also just a very, like, he is a bodybuilding coach. And I love when it's a bodybuilding coach that also takes their the long-term health of their athlete and the sustainability of their health of their athlete into perspective. And I think him and Jason do a really good job of that. And I think that, obviously age plays into that. Both of them are not in their, early 20s. I think that, I think it's very valuable to still keep, the people who are in the industry at an older age and still present, because what this industry didn't have early on was people who were longevity or had longevity.
Yeah.
And I think that the people who are in here that show that there is longevity are the people who really have a lot that they can still continue to teach everybody. And they're still learning too. And I think that's awesome. So yeah, they're some of my favorites.
As we get so much more information too, I mean, this is again part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, because you kind of had your stint with competing, and I wanted to know, and I wanted you to share what you have learned through all this, how you've grown a business with it, how you've incorporated it into your lifestyle. So it's not just I'm a bodybuilder, now I'm not a bodybuilder anymore. I think that's really important for people to understand how to do that transition. So so excellent information. Really, really great meeting you and talking to you. And I think that this is going to benefit a ton of people. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to say to women before we peace out?
Obviously I'm known for the stronger, not smaller mentality. But it doesn't just mean from a physical sense, it means from your whole being. When you walk into a room with a strong presence and not, what's the word I'm looking for? Shrinking yourself down. You're going to always come out on top. And I think that was also part of my journey away from competing. It was like, I'm strong in who I am and what I see for myself now. And I don't want to minimize myself or increase myself to a certain degree, to fit a box. And so I think the stronger, not smaller ends up translating into be strong enough in what you want for yourself and who you are, and not try to always be somebody else's standards. Because most of the time that quote smaller standard that you're trying to achieve might not even be a standard that you've set for yourself. It's a standard that society has, or your environment has, or maybe your best friend has, and you realize that it's not actually the standard that you want for yourself.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, you guys, thanks for listening and watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and do all those wonderful things that you do. And you can find me on Instagram at buffcake22. You can follow the podcast at Women's Maximum Fitness. And just remember that healthy looks different on everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.